All right. So, big week. No time to kind of sit there and feel sorry for yourself about one of them that, didn't finish the way you want to. You gotta keep moving forward. Got a really red hot, Texas State team coming in here that, just the truth be told, they do a lot of things that present problems for you on offense and defense. They live on the big play on both sides of the ball, and they're good at it. So for us, we're going to have to do a really good job offensively being sound, making sure that we, don't let negative plays turn into turnovers and things like that. And on defense, you got to limit the explosives and try to keep them out of their rhythm, because when they're in tempo and they're in rhythm, they're pretty explosive. So plenty of challenges coming our way. Very different this week than last week as far as play style goes on both sides of the ball, but a heck of a challenge nonetheless.
Would you say that it's like a huge difference between play styles, or not so much as far as between the two games?
Polar opposites, really. Yeah, I was as opposite ends of the spectrum as you could be, really, on both sides, honestly.
How would you compare what they do to what Old Dominion did?
They're a little more multiple offensively than what Old Dominion is. They have the ability. They're not always super wide splits, 4 wide. That's not all that they are. They've got a little bit more than that, but that's certainly part of their game plan. So there's a significant part of that. And certainly, we had our issues in that game. So we got to get those things corrected and make sure that we're ready for that. Because, if I'm them and you're watching the tape and you see, well, this is, a big part of what Texas State does, that they're going to have a plan for that. So we got to do a good job and make sure that we've made those corrections and we move on from there.
Coach, they've got a new system, a new coach, pretty limited film on it. Do you go back and look at G.J. Kinney as a coach previously, or how do you kind of manage that just limited amount of film that they have on their system?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we've got the entire UIW season from last year as well. Same defensive coordinator, same offensive coordinator, some of the same personnel, ironically. So, yeah, you go back and you get as much information as you can, especially just because, we do, we're offensively for us, we're a little bit unique in some of the personnel groupings and stuff like that we have. And there's not a ton of that, week to week. So, yeah, we're going to have to continue to kind of go back through the archives a little bit and make sure we get as much information as we can.
Last week, possessions at a premium and making sure you get the most out of possessions were obviously important. It'll be different, but equally important this week. How do you keep Zion and Draylon and Rob and skill guys and the offensive guys from not allowing that to sort of be in the front of their minds, and maybe just go out there and try to execute as cleanly as possible?
Or what to be on the front of their mind? What do you mean?
Just trying to make sure that they're efficient with their possessions, because you may have to, try to match scores.
Well, I mean, that's what we're always trying to do, is be efficient. And, every drive, when we start out, we talk about the situation kind of and talk about why it's important, getting a score maybe to take a lead or being able to kind of match score for score, whatever the situation might be. So, I mean, it's always important to us, and I mean, yeah, this week, like I said, it's just different, because these guys, if they get a lead, they're going to try to jump out to a bigger lead, where Minnesota they're going to get a lead and they're going to squeeze the ball and they're going to try to get a bigger lead, obviously, but they're going to try to do it by eating clock. That's kind of not the way these guys are wired. They'll score in bunches. And so, offensively, it's really important, like always, that you don't get in a hole. But for us, it's just one of those deals that I think our defense is playing better whenever we're kind of moving the ball on offense. It's a little bit different than it has been in the past. So for us, I think just for our team to have confidence, we got to move the ball. Certainly if we can eat some clock, that'll be good, because they don't eat a lot of it. Last week you knew you weren't going to get many plays. This week, if you play well on offense and on defense, you have a chance to get a lot of plays in the game. So, it'll be a little bit different. But, I mean, scoring and being efficient is always, it's always a priority.
What's the biggest challenge that your defense you think is going to face this week?
Well, I mean, I think it's just the tempo that they're going to play with, and they're going to try to spread you out and get the ball in space. Last week, our defense, we played we played really tough and we played really well on the inside, and those guys ended up scoring some points, but they're a pretty darn good team. So this is a little bit different. It's like a totally unique game plan. You got to control the line of scrimmage with a light box, which is not easy to do. At times we've done it well, at times we have not. And then on the outside, on the perimeter. You got to be physical on the perimeter screens. You got to tackle really well, and you got to run to the football. And you got to understand that one negative play for us defensively can't turn into two, because that's what you watch them. I mean, they'll have one explosive, and next thing you know, they turn around, they're shot down the field, and they're hitting it. So you got to have a short-term memory, and you got to go play. I mean, they're a good team. They have good players. They've got a really good scheme. They're well coached. They're going to do some positive things on their end. We have to continue to play, and we got to make sure that we don't just let it kind of one turn into two. That's, like I said, I don't know a better way to describe them than that's what they live on, the big play, on both sides. And on defense, they might give up some yards, and all of a sudden they'll hit you for a TFL for a big one, and then they get a stop. They have a formula, you can tell, for how they want to play offense and defense, and they do a good job with it.
So talk about how much you like your depth on this team. Is this one of those weeks that depth is really going to come into being a factor?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you're going to potentially get, shoot, 80, 90 plays on defense, yeah, for sure. You got to be able to roll guys. You got to be able to stay fresh, and you're going to have to continue to play those guys that have played. A lot of them have played really well. Some of them haven't played their best. They got to prepare well, and they got to be ready to go.
One of the issues against ODU is getting the defensive play call in. How do you make that adjustment against Texas State, who's going to do the same thing?
Well, there's a lot of things that we've done, and I'm not going to kind of go into all the details of it, but there's a lot of things we've done, quality control in that game, for things that we can do, not just for us to get the call in. A lot of it was getting the call communicated player to player with some of the moving parts that we had. So we've discussed it, we've worked on it, and we've got a new a new plan going forward for a way that we can get that stuff communicated faster and get lined up and get our cleats in the ground and go play.
So are they blitzing a lot? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Big play part of defense?
Yeah. They blitz. They move the front. There's somebody coming almost all the time. There's a lot of different alignments. They've got guys. They kind of line up all over the place, and they play fast, and they'll bring it, and their D-line does a really good job. They're slippery. They'll move gaps, and they'll stunt. Their linebackers pressure a lot. They have secondary pressures as well. So yeah, there's a lot of it coming pretty much every play.
Some of the things you've seen from TJ Finley so far on film.
He's a good player. He's well documented, from high school, all the way through what he's done, and he's found a place for him that I think they got it where it really makes sense for him. He goes back there and they let him play to his strengths. If he gets you in man-to-man coverage, he's got a big arm. He's accurate with it. He puts the ball on the money. I think he's done a really good job processing what you're doing on defense. He's thrown with a lot of accuracy this year. He's just running the system really well, and he's capable of running, but that's not really what he is, and they don't make him. He has some runs and stuff in there to keep you honest, and he does a good job with it. He's capable. But he's a thrower, and he's a good thrower, and they're letting him do that. They do things with these splits to spread it out to make the picture a little bit clearer. They play fast, so you have to declare what you're doing, and he's done a really good job of processing that. And I'm happy for him that he's landed on his feet in a place that works for him. TJ's a good kid, and sometimes things don't work out, but for him, he's found a spot that it is working out. He's playing really well, like I said, that's kind of what you want, for these kids, is to be able to go to a place where, they fit and they find a spot. And TJ's a really good kid, and he's playing really well for them.
As a offensive play caller, the offense and defense always have to work together. But how much is it on the offense to help the defense against this kind of an offense in your play call?
Well, I think that playing good defense is a team effort, and for us, we can't have a bunch of 3 and outs, and you can't have 4 play drives that don't result in points. You got to get points, even if it's fast, it's got to be points, But obviously, we're not going to change the way we play. We're still going to do the way we're taking shots and doing those things and trying to get the ball down the field, but it is important that you sustain some drives, particularly, if Texas State, their formula is not really long drives to score. They score a lot in 5, 6, 7 plays. Then you turn around, you get a 3 and out. Well, then you're right back on the field, and that's where the cumulative effect starts to take place. So, we got to find a way to establish the run and be effective with it. It's difficult when they do as much stuff as they do on defense because you're gonna have some negative plays. You just gotta kind of stick to it, and you got to get some positives. You got to get some explosives on the flip side, and you got to really try to do a good job and cover it up and be as efficient as you can so that you can help the defense. Because if the play count gets one-sided, it's not going to be a whole lot of fun, to play defense against those guys with the tempo they play at.
Speaking of, just the offensive side, but they're explosive from everywhere. You see them to take the opening kick, take that to the house, the punt return, they're all fast. How important is it for all 3 phases to click for you this week?
This unit, this group at Texas State, they've been good on special teams since I got back in this league in 2016. They're in the state of Texas. Okay, they got a lot of speed. They've got a lot of good football players, and it's always showed up on special teams, and it's no different this year. They've got guys that can take it the distance coming back, but you don't do that alone. You have to have good players on teams. So we got to play really fast. We got to make sure that we're disciplined. And you got to strain. You got to play with effort. You got to hold people up on the return game. And then in the cover units, you got to make sure that you win one-on-ones, and you got to get the guys on the ground. So they've always been good on teams all the way back when Coach Withers was there and Coach Spav and them continued it. And it's no different now. It's Texas State University. They're going to have a bunch of dudes that can run around out there, and that's not a surprise to us at all. So we're going to have to play well for sure in all 3 phases.
It's a refreshing feel, after losing in Minnesota, now you're coming to the conference play. You played with Louisiana already, but it's a refreshing feel to just have everything in front of you, starting with Texas State.
Yeah, well, you can't live in a world where you're constantly worrying about what's happened. Yeah, it was a game that we went up there and we wanted to win, and we had some opportunities and we didn't. But you've always got to look at what's in front of you. And, right now, after week 5, if you don't have a whole lot of hope right now, then that's a bad world to be living in. So, for us, yeah, we're extremely excited about what's in front of us. We've talked to our team. It's a 1-game season right now. We have 1 game on our schedule right now, and then we have a bye week. And the last thing you want to do is go into a bye week, where you don't play very well and you don't find a way to win. So for us, it's all focus on Texas State moving forward. You can't do what we want to do if we don't beat these guys. So all the other stuff is really irrelevant, and all of our focus and our effort and our energy right now is going to be on playing Texas State at home on Saturday. It's not going to be hard for our guys to get motivated. They'll turn the tape on and they'll see it's a really good football team. So they're gonna know exactly what's coming in here. Their record speaks for itself, but you watch the tape and you can see why they're 4-1 right now. You can see why they're playing really good football. So yeah, it's important for us to move on to this one. That's why I didn't spend a lot of time on the last one, because we've taken some things from that. We're gonna move forward, and we got to go find a way to win this week.
How important is this about much of Saturday defensively, about winning one-on-one battles in space and getting tackles one-on-one in space? Is that a huge part of what they hope teams don't do in their success?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. They've got receivers that can really run. They're quick, shifty, and that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to pitch a speed sweep in space where you got a one-on-one tackle, you make it. Minimal gain, you don't, huge gain. They're going to throw perimeter screens out there, and they're going to throw quite a few of them. You got to get off a block and make a tackle. If you don't, it's a big play. If you do, it's a minimal gain. Then they're going to run screen and goes off of it where they got you in one-on-one. And, you have good eye discipline, you play it well, you knock it down, no gain, or it's a touchdown. So, yeah, it's a lot about one-on-ones on the perimeter. And I think part of that, though, you got to play well up front in the middle because that, limits the time that they can hold the ball, but that's really not what they're doing. They're getting it out fast anyway. So we got to tackle well in space, but we got to run to the football too. When the ball turns back, we got to be there to rally and tackle and get the guys on the ground.
So when that's an off-the-wall question, do y'all have a radical version of the butt push play on 4th and inches or something? And have the analytics changed on what teams do on 4th and short? Normally you never go forward anywhere around midfield or in your end. Now it seems like more and more teams are using that and trying to sustain drives.
Yeah, no, we don't really do that. But yeah, analytics have changed the game. some people are straight by the book, which the book is typically pretty aggressive. You know, I use the book and I want to hear what it has to say every time, but I think there's still a gut feeling and a feel for the way the game's going to make those decisions. But yeah, analytics has changed the game. I mean, that's why you see so many go for it situations, and you know, some people will go for it, you know, backed up. I mean, I remember one time it was insane. It was in 2019, I think. We were on the -30. It was 3rd and 8, and the book was a go for it at 4th and 9. And we were up by 7. And I remember vividly Coach Napier turning around. I mean, he was pretty much by the book. He turned around and looked at the guy with the book and was, you know, almost had a stroke right there. We were all, you know, it's just so this book is super aggressive. You know, I think you got to kind of use a little bit of common sense in the way you feel about it. It was, I'll never forget it because it was the look like, you know, we ain't doing that. So.
Anything else for Coach?
Did you guys out of Ponchatoula, did y'all recruit TJ at all?
Yeah, we tried to.
What do you remember about just kind of those conversations with him?
He was a great kid, man. I mean, you know, really good kid. He was always, you know, very engaging. You know, his head coach there, Coach Tierney, who was there at the time, was great. And, you know, I mean, the conversations with them were always good. And Coach Tierney was always, you know, great, you know, with kind of facilitating those conversations and getting them on the phone and things like that. We'd run into him at camps. Maybe he'd be on the road. I mean, TJ's a really good kid, you know, I mean, and like I said, I think, you know, the fact that it's worked out for him, I'm happy for him.